Hi, I'm Dan Chase. I run this channel along with Spindle. Normally I'm behind the camera, but I also do some work on cars. So I figured I'd show you my 316i E30. Now, I've owned this for a few years, since 2012. The original plan with it was just to get it painted because the bodywork was a little bit rough and ready. Throw everything else back in and sell it. I've already got another E30. I've got a 318 IS that is my daily. So this wasn't overly important. So I sent it off to paint. The guy who's painting it took a while to do it, so it's taken about 5 years, but I can't really complain because they've rocketed in value since then, so swings and roundabouts. The plan was originally just to chuck everything back in and just sell it, but the paintwork has come out so good that I'm now taking my time cleaning everything and getting it back to a standard where I'm happy with it, and obviously I can then charge a little bit more money when I go to sell it. So I've done a few things since it's been back. I've rebuilt the front. That was pretty straightforward. It's just a case of bolting the front on, put the lights in, grille, etc. The grille's probably not going to stay that copper colour. And then I've also refurbed the brake booster, because there's not an E30 in the world where the brake booster looks good, because they just rust. So that's been treated. I've cleaned and polished all the interior parts of the engine bay. Any brackets have been painted. So yeah, it's pretty much ready for the engine to go back in. I've just got a few little bits to do on the inside. Today we are going to be doing a headliner. Now, I could have kept the old one in there and painted it or something like that. There's a few options you've got online. When I was searching, one is you can get paint for them, but I didn't really want to trust that. Plus the old headliner is just knackered. I mean, it's been in the car since 1990 when they were made, so it's pretty brittle. It's stained. It's not a nice thing to look at. You can get stuff like fabric that you glue onto the existing headliner. Again, I didn't really trust that, because over time, especially with the heat in the car and the sun gets on it, the glue's probably not going to hold up that great. You'll end up with a drooping headliner, which I don't really want. And whoever buys the car, or whoever the car goes to, I don't want them to feel like I've kind of screwed them over. So after a long search online, I found one company that makes headliners for E30s, and that is CAtuned, which I believe is in California, because it's California tuned. Super fast. I ordered it on the Monday. I think it was in England 3 days later, something like that, but they sent it to the wrong address, so it took a little while longer to get here, but it's here now. I've ripped out the old headliner. You can see how brittle it is. You could have bought a second-hand one, I suppose, on eBay, but that's still going to be 30 years old, still going to be brittle. You can just tear it so easily. It's not really worth the effort to get a second-hand one. You might as well just buy a brand new one. The price of it wasn't too bad at all. Actually worked out a little bit more expensive than buying a clean second-hand one, but I'd rather put new rather than old in there. The good news is that once I get the headlining in, I can then get the windows in, and then the interior can go in. And once the interior is in, I don't have to take it out again. I've been building it up and kind of putting the interior in, pulling it out, putting it in, trying to get everything kind of, well, just to see what I was missing, because obviously the car's been in paint for 5 years, so some things have gone missing and wandered. But luckily now, once we get the headline in, I can just put that in and leave it in. The dashboard is out. I have filled the cracks on that. We're going to get that flocked, not because of anything race car, but just because trying to find a new clean dashboard is going to be impossible. I've got one in the IS, but I don't want to use that. That's my daily. I'm keeping that one, so it's got a clean dashboard in it. I'm going to keep that in there. So with this one, I just figured I'd fix it up and get it flocked. It's not going to look original, but it's going to look a hell of a lot better than a cracked dash. There's a few other things I've done to the inside. The rear partial shelf's been covered, the back of the seats has been covered. This has got the IS interior from the other one. There's also some coilovers going on this. The rears are fitted. I've already filmed that, and I'll put that up in a video once we've done the fronts. A lot of cutting involved, but we'll cover all that. It's not just a simple case of putting on new coilovers. Outside of that, we're going to try the headlining. There's a few parts on the interior that I'm thinking I'm going to glue down before I put the headlining in, mainly where the sunroof handle goes, because I don't really want that to lift up as I'm putting it in. The fabric that they've sent is slightly different from this stuff. It's a little bit more tougher and a lot thinner. This is more fabric, so it's going to stretch and move around a little bit more. So if I start to cut holes in it to put things back in place, my concern is that it's not going to hold its position very well. So when you go to put the original part back in, it's going to come away and you're going to end up seeing roof, which I don't want. So I'm thinking I'm going to run a little bit of glue around those. The stuff I'm using is this stuff. It's called Refix tape by 3M. Luckily for me, I've got two neighbours. One of them is an old retired painter and the other one is into his cars as well, so they've got plenty of information for me. And the painter guy was saying that this is the stuff that they normally use, and I've already done the little sunroof panel with it, and it seems to be amazing, so I can't really fault it. So that's what I'm going to use on the outside. Taking the headliner out is pretty straightforward. You just rip it out. Just keep a track of where there is glue from the factory, and then you can match that when you go to put your new headliner back in. There's two kind of poles or struts that run along the back. You just push them out there. They've got little plastic holders. You pull them out of that. They run through the fabric. The new headliner from CAtuned has those loops already stitched in, so they will keep that in place. From my understanding, you put the headliner back in using those poles, and then you pull it to the back. I'm going to clip that in place, run it down the side, clip those in place, and then stretch it to the front, clip all that, and then go around the edges and clip it. And then once you've got it all in position, I'm just going to double check that everything fits and what kind of overlaps we have, and then I'm going to remove the clips, put the tape on, re-clip it back up, and then you work in sections, just peeling a bit of the tape off as you go and sticking it down. So hopefully it should be okay. We shall see, but it's going to go either one of two ways. It's either going to go really well, which will be amazing, or it's going to go really bad, which means I'd have to go and buy another headliner. So fingers crossed. Anyway, let's try it. And I'll tell you what, that went a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I know it's only pinned in place. It looks pretty decent. The headliner is a little bit soft and floppy, but that's to be expected. This is going to be held in place once we cut around the sunroof hole, glue that all in. You've also got the handles at the sides, the lights, the sun visors, rear view mirror. Once they all go in, they'll keep everything up in place. My only real concern is how tight I need to pull this, but I think this is pretty good. I'm happy. So I've got a few more bits of glue. We're going to have to glue around the corners, around here, which I wouldn't have thought about. Definitely around the sunroof controller hole though. But it's in place. And I think all we've got to do now is just unclip, glue and stick. It should be good. But I think tonight I'm just going to get the glue in place and then I'll deal with that tomorrow. Day 2, the headline has stayed in place, it hasn't drooped at all, which is good. I thought maybe because it's fabric there might be a little bit of movement overnight, but it's all stayed in place. The sunroof panel that I did a few days ago is still holding up really well, so I know the tape works really good, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm just going to crack on and get it done. Now I did say that taking the headliner out, it's just a case of ripping it out. It's a little bit more involved, not around the outside of the actual bodywork, but the sunroof panel takes a little bit of work. There's several sections to the sunroof mechanism, and there's an aluminium section that looks like it's one piece, but it's actually two. You just have to lift one up and then slide the other piece out. Once you kind of figure that out, it's actually really easy to take out. I'll cover that towards the end of the video when I'm putting it all back together. But let's crack on. Right, I'm going to show you how to remove the sunroof mechanism. It's quite straightforward, just take your time. Whatever I'm doing, I'm only showing you this section close up. You've got to match it on the other side at the same time. So as I take screws out, take them out the other side as well. Everything moves forward when you need to move it. First thing you have to do is pull this down off of the actual sunroof. It's only these little tags that hold everything in. So you just move it forward, pull it down, and then raise the sunroof up, and then unbolt that. Once you've got to that point, you just push this in, and then you can take the sunroof panel off. So once we get to this, first thing to do is remove this little clip. That just clips out. You can lift that up and manoeuvre it to come forward, so it's out. I don't need to remove this just yet, so I'm going to leave this in. The first plate we need to take off is this. And then this plate, these are slightly longer screws or bolts, so you want to keep them with it if you can, otherwise you're going to lose them. If you see, they're longer than those ones. Now that plate should lift out. Now there's blue tack under here, which is the first time I've ever seen that on a car, but I'm sure BMW knew what they were doing. So now what we need to do is we need to release this mechanism from the runner, and that runner runs along here, so we can move it forward using the handle. And what you want to do is get that to a point where you can just see this little part. So you lift this up out of the way, make sure not to scratch anything, pull this forward, don't worry about this too much, and then it will just slide out. And this is the bit I was mentioning. It's not aluminium, it's just like a chrome tin thing. But this and this are actually two separate parts. So I'm just going to take the wind deflector off. This is quite flimsy and it's very sharp, so be very careful. What you want to do is just lift up one corner. Might need to undo that one actually. If you lift that, you can angle that, and then under here at the back, I'm not sure I'll be able to see that, I'll get it with my phone. The back is this runner. You need to remove that. And once that's loosened off, I don't need to take it all the way off. You see this whole section is now kind of moving and lifting. We can just slide this bit backwards. And that will come out. And that gives you access to the glue section that you need to reach when you're doing the headliner. Okay, both sides are tied down. Now what we've got to do is move this forward. This little square piece should slide down into this, and then this should link up with something here, and then that kind of joins onto that. As that runs in, that controls the mechanism rising and lowering. So we just need to move it forward. There it goes. So that's dropped in. As we move it back, that then opens those bits. Now as this mechanism moves back, it should clamp onto this. There's two kind of runners on this section. So as you can see, this little arm here needs to be underneath. It needs to line up this little metal hanger and lock in like that. I'm going to move it backwards. There it goes. Now when you move forward, it's going to come out, and that's completely normal because normally these will be holding against the metal sunroof, and the sunroof is bolted in. If you can see there and there. So this will be locked in place. But yeah, just make sure that's lined in. The little square plug goes down there. Your runners are all in okay, and it should be good. You might also have to trim this section, because when I had the fabric over the top of that, it didn't want to fit into this little runner, so I trimmed all this back. But outside of that, that is it. The other thing to be aware of is that if, like me, you didn't take a note of where all the mounting sections are, you don't just want to go punching holes through the fabric. So I know roughly where they sit, and I've been using a very fine Allen key just to poke through the fabric where I need to find the hole, and then I've been putting the screws in. If you just go trying to put a screw through, chances are you're going to miss the hole and just end up with holes in the fabric that you don't want. The hardest part is the rear view mirror. It has this spring-loaded locator, which is almost impossible to get back in, so I think that's going to be a two-man job. Basically one side goes in, and then you've got to push something in to push that up in place, but at the moment I don't even want to attempt that on my own. I've been struggling with it for about an hour, and I've just said that's enough, I'm going to get someone else to help me. But the handles are in. This is where the sun visor is going to sit. I've got black one on order, so it's not going to stay cream, so it's not really worth putting that in yet. But outside of that, we're done. So that's the install of the headliner done. The CAtuned, if that's how they pronounce their name, I'm not sure it is, but if it is, CAtuned headliner is bang on, 100% from me. I think that would have been an absolute nightmare with a second-hand headliner. They're so brittle that you just wouldn't have the space to pull and push where you need to. You'd probably end up tearing it on the corners. With a brand new one, it looks so much better, and why not put a new one in? You know, it's for the sake of a few £100, why not? Hopefully this has given some of you the confidence to try it yourself. I've never done this before. It's actually pretty easy, just a lot of planning, a lot of measuring. Make sure that everything's in place before you start sticking it down. But yeah, all fun and games. Should be posting more videos soon on this build. I think we've got the dashboard being flocked. I've got a little bit more interior to do, and then we're putting the engine in, and also the BC racing coilovers. Don't forget to check out the other videos that we've done. Spindle's still doing plenty of work on the M3 at the moment. I've got a 318 IS, which I'll do a little feature on at some point, because there's quite a lot of custom bits on that. And I'm not going to tell you, but thanks.